Good morning, and wishing a terrific Tuesday to you. Welcome to today's episode of Morning Well. Three things that we will talk about. What's the political upside for Pelosi? OPEC Plus warned of a precarious outlook. Softbank buying out of the money calls. US stocks took a sharp hit on Monday as hopes continued to fade for a stimulus deal. After the market closed, though, news broke that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary edged closer to ironing out some of the remaining policy differences, holding up a sweeping relief package. Over the weekend, Pelosi had indicated that the White House needed to reach a deal with the Democrats by Tuesday evening to produce relief legislation that could pass before the election. Major US stocks indexes opened higher but retreated over the day as Democratic imposed deadline for a deal approached with no clear signs of progress. The Dow was down about 1.4%. The blue chip index had been up more than 105 points just after the opening bell. A statement from the director of global markets Boston Partners summarizes what I've been also talking about. President Trump could love to have a stimulus package before the election, but there is no political upside for Pelosi to sign anything before the election. She can always blame it on the fact that the Republicans didn't want it, and that's why we have not been able to support you in terms of the relief package. Chinese officials said that the GDP expanded 4.9% in the third quarter from a year earlier, putting China's economy back towards its pre-coronavirus trajectory half a year after the pandemic gutted its economy. Investors had a mixed reaction to the data though. The growth figure fell short of some expectations. The Shanghai index was down about 0.7%, while Hong Kong was up by 0.6%. In Europe, the Euro Stock 600 was down by 0.3%. Overall, the S&P 500 was also down 1.6% and the Nasdaq was down about 1.7%. That's the fifth consecutive losing session for the Nasdaq. Yields were up. The 10-year was up to about 0.77. The dollar fell against most of the G10. Aussie retreated a little bit, but yen also failed to appreciate. Gold advanced and Asian equity futures are in the red. OPEC Plus warned of a precarious outlook as a resurgent pandemic hurt crude demand. Saudi Arabia and Russia showed their unity at the meeting, with top officials offering very bearish views. There were no discussions on supply curbs next year, and the decisions are expected at the December 1 summit, if at all there is. On the equity side, Halliburton shares fell about 8 cents or 0.7% after the oil field services company reported a quarterly loss of about 17 million. That was down from a profit of about 295 million in the same period last year. But it did meet Wall Street analyst forecast. IBM also reported third quarter revenue that beat, driven by gains in its cloud offerings. Sales fell about 2.6% to 17.6 billion, slightly better than the forecast of 17.5 billion. Total cloud revenue increased 19% to about 6 billion, led by Red Hat, which saw a jump of about 17% in sales. Shares of AMC Entertainment jumped about 50 cents or about 16% after the movie theater operator said that it could resume operations at some locations in New York State beginning on Friday. In other deal news, ConocoPhillips slid by about 3.2% after the oil giant agreed to acquire Texas shale driller Concho Resources in a $9.7 billion all-stock deal. Concho shares fell yesterday by about 2.8%. Investors will get about 1.46 Conoco shares per Concho share. So that's a 15% more than Concho's closing price on October 13th, which is when the talks were initially reported. Intel is close to selling memory chip division to SK Hynix for about 10 billion is what some analysts are reporting as well. Softbank charged ahead with its new public stock trading arm, increasing equity positions to more than 20 billion despite an initially skeptical response from shareholders. Over the past few weeks, Softbank renewed its commitment to buy public equities trading arm around expectations of a volatile third quarter earnings season. Softbank has been buying out of the money call options, which deliver returns when share prices rise, by selling calls at even higher prices. So basically a call spread that they are buying on various stocks. Lastly, on the FX front, the dollar traded lower against most of the majors on Monday as the new stimulus deadline looms. There are a number of Federal Reserve officials scheduled to speak this week, but there's very little market moving data outside the market PMIs on Friday that will shed some light on whether the record-breaking new coronavirus cases in 10 states take a bite out of the growth in October. Remains to be seen. That's the update. Stay safe and healthy, everyone, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.